So Verity, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we start, first of all, obviously huge congratulations. You just won the World Championship of Public Speaking. And I guess you must be exhausted by now.
Exhausted is the perfect word for what I am right now, Nick. It's been a grueling 6 months. It's been amazing, but I've never put so much intense focus on 7 minutes of speaking in my life. So I am tired.
Yeah, well, so thanks again. And obviously public speaking is really important. It's really key to leaders across the world today. But before we walk into leadership, into the future of leadership, Verity, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your own background? Where did you grow up?
So I'm a real child of Africa. I was born in Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia as it was called in those days. And we left there when I was 5 after the Civil War. So quite a difficult time. Moved to South Africa. My parents lost everything. We actually lived in a caravan park or a camper van park. I don't know what it's called elsewhere in the world. But it was a very tough time, and it's something I speak about in my World Championship speech, of my dad having to adjust to going from an executive salary to selling insurance door to door. But they moved to South Africa to give me a better life. I was the baby in the family. My brother and sister were already grown up, and they wanted to bring me to a country where they believed there'd be really good education. And so we ended up in Cape Town. I went to a Waldorf school as my foundational years of education, which I loved. It was a very alternative, creative way of learning, and I think it's definitely shaped who I am. But for my last 2 years of school, I went to a traditional school, which I also enjoyed, because now I had a uniform and you could win badges and certificates, and I quite enjoyed that. And then I went to University of Cape Town, where I studied psychology and anthropology. I've got a keen interest in what makes us tick and how do we work with each other within kind of our cultural constructs. But somehow in the middle of all of that, I started songwriting, which triggered a dream to be a singer. So I spent 10 years pursuing the music industry, having a lot of fun, learning a lot, overcoming my fear of being on stage and stage fright, which I did suffer from. And in my early 30s, in an attempt to raise money for my first album, I came up with an idea where I asked people to buy an album I hadn't recorded. And this was 2005. So this was pre-crowdfunding being a thing. And without realizing it, I became one of the world's first online crowdfunders. And as a result, I became a lot more famous for innovation and creativity than I did for singing, which was not the plan, but that's what happened. I was suddenly being invited to speak all around the world about the thinking that went into my project, because I sold 2,000 copies of Nothing in 25 countries. I gave 10% to charity. And by the time I released the album, the interest was in the thinking, not in the music. And when I eventually accepted that, it opened up a career of speaking and facilitating, going into businesses, helping disrupt the way they were thinking about obstacles and opportunities, and creating a safe place for teams to think together and work together towards their desired outcomes. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, and really loving it, but certainly an unexpected, uncharted life path, very different to what I thought I would be doing.
Now, Verity, you started off as a songwriter, a singer. I once read somewhere that public speaking is a little bit like singing. Would you agree to that?
It is, but what's interesting, Nick, is a lot of singers, they're fine while they're singing, but it's what do I say between the songs? How do I actually connect with the audience? And you'll see that when you go and watch some live shows. I really believe the musicians that grab our hearts are the ones that can also speak to us between the songs and engage with us and laugh with us. And that's what I learned singing. I had to learn how to speak to the audience between a song, because you can hide behind a guitar and a piano and a microphone. But when you put that away, it's how do I connect with the audience? And so I think it does set you, it gives you the confidence to be in front of an audience, but you still have to learn how to speak to the audience.
And tell us, going back to your early days, Verity, what was your dream career?
My dream career was to be an actress when I was growing up. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to Hollywood. I wanted to be famous. And I got the lead in the school play when I was 13, which was very exciting. I probably was a little bit arrogant about it and showing off that I'd got the lead, and I irritated some kids, and I ended up getting quite badly bullied. And in that experience, I made a decision that you should never stand out. You must sit at the back of life and just don't take up too much space. And it took me many, many years to get over that.
Right. And tell us, who inspired you in your early days?
Gosh, I think I was very much, because I was the baby, I was always looking up to my brother and sister. They were 10 and 12 years older than me. So I ended up trying to follow in their footsteps a lot of the time. But my parents were a quiet source of inspiration, because they were just always there, always with a little nugget of wisdom, or read this book or consider this concept. And so they've very much developed my love of thinking and thinking differently and just self-awareness. So definitely my family was my big source of inspiration.
So, and Verity, tell us, what is driving you today?
What drives me today is a love of helping people see what they're capable of. I'm someone who has struggled and had to overcome many obstacles in my life, and I continue to confront my own obstacles. But I love sharing what I've learned and putting it into processes that gives people an aha moment, and it suddenly gives them the freedom to see what they're capable of and go, oh, I'm not limited by my past, and I'm not a prisoner of my personality. Actually, you know, if I change a few things, if I instill some healthy habits in my life, I can actually change my circumstances. So that is my passion.
Now, Verity, as a leader to many future leaders, and you're speaking across the world about leadership, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
In the 10 years I've been working with leaders, and in a way almost like an anthropologist, where I'm observing cultural, corporate cultures, for me, the future of leadership is inclusion. It's leaders who include everyone in their business, and they create a forum for every voice to be heard. I think for too long, decisions have been made at that C-suite level, and then we try and trickle down that decision into the organization, and we wonder why there's resistance. I think when we create a space for open dialogue between everyone who's helping a business be successful, I think that is when we start to create robust businesses. And if I look at the workforce of the future that are coming in, they're not going to tolerate the old ways of leading. They're going to want that inclusivity. So that's just from what I'm seeing, that's what I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and Verity, looking back over your own leadership journey, what would you say is most important for building future leaders, for empowering future leaders?
Creating a space where they can be honest and where they can be vulnerable. I think I'm talking obviously in a South African context, so I can't speak for the rest of the world, but often the way we're schooled and educated is we need to look good and we need to look intelligent and we need to have all the answers. And that becomes what we would call a bit of a fixed mindset if we're not careful, because we're trying to protect our persona. But I think if we create a space where people can engage honestly about who they are and their fears and their hopes, and they can work together to create something from that space, that's where the magic emerges. So for myself as a facilitator, I always feel my job is to open up that honesty in the room, and suddenly people come to life. They go, oh, I didn't know that was going on for you. This is what's going on for me. And then the creativity comes apart. And now we're also aligned because I like you and I trust you. And I want to be part of this endeavor together. So I think the biggest thing we can do to empower people is to encourage honesty and vulnerability in our engagements and actually build it in to the way we connect and collaborate in our business. Not wait for just the team building. Actually, it should be part of the agenda. Let's have an open sharing session.
Right. And Verity, when you speak to future leaders, what is it you tell them about social media? How should they navigate social media to build their own leadership personal brand?
I think it's going to be a similar answer to my last answer is, are you sharing your authentic voice and your position and perspective on life with an openness going, I might be wrong, but this is where I stand. This is what I've learned. And it's not dissimilar to public speaking, Nick. It's, if I'm writing a speech, am I communicating a message that is universal and that people can connect with and can apply to their own lives? So when we're using social media, am I using it just to kind of blare all my accomplishments? Or am I sharing my voice and also opening up the space for people to learn with me as I learn? So again, it's a choice to go, how honest do I want to be? And it's not about airing our dirty laundry and saying, these are my problems, but saying, this is something I've been dealing with. This is what I've learned from it. What do you see in this? And I think that starts to build trust in the online space. And the people who want to follow you are going to be with you heart and soul.
Now, Verity, we are living in challenging times, and you mentioned a couple of the challenges in your own career. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
Well, I think the given challenge is change. Things are always going to be changing, but I do think the last few years have toughened a lot of us up to expect it and know that we can pivot and change really quickly. But within that, the ongoing challenge for leaders outside of your business and your industry and the change that's happening in the market around you is your people. And if you don't skill yourself to work successfully with people and to create a safe and inclusive environment where people's creativity and innovation can show up, you're not going to have a business that is able to adapt when that external change happens. So it really is going, am I working on my own self-development and my own self-awareness so that I understand the impact I have on my team? And am I creating a space where my team can emerge as a high-performing team, not a team that are always in conflict with each other because we don't have the tools to deal with the fact that we're human? Because the humanness is not going away. The world might become incredibly automated, incredibly digital, but at the end of the day, a leader will always be dealing with people. And that's the skill I think we all should be honing and getting really, really good at.
Now, Verity, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
Wow, I like that. I get to design a whole curriculum. In the current work I do on leadership development, I spend a lot of time starting here. So this is not new stuff, but it's just going, let's focus on mindset. Let's understand our thinking style. Let me get clear on how do I show up under stress? How do I react when things don't go my way? So really creating a space for people to get a full understanding of themselves, but a safe place to share those vulnerabilities with their team members, and then giving them a language that they can use on a day-to-day basis that takes away the severity or the harshness of the things that maybe create conflict. So, I mean, I do a silly thing when I'm teaching innovation and we're doing lateral thinking, and we're talking about the fact that people love to squash each other's ideas because they're afraid of risk. So someone gives you an idea and then someone else goes, that's not going to work. We don't have the money. That's never going to get taken up by the market. I've taught them that if someone says that or says the word but, then they must stand up and they must shake their butts for each other and they have a laugh. And then they go, okay, sorry, I was shooting down your idea. Let's see if we can work through this together. Let's see if we can find the value. So for me, the curriculum that I would want to create is where radical self-awareness is put in place for leaders, and there's a level of play and fun in the way they interact with each other, and they learn how to do that. They learn how to put it into their leadership style and into the interactions, because that for me is where the magic happens.
Thank you. And Verity, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
A lot of my work that I do are 1 or 2 day workshops, and I'm with a team for a short time. I've got a few businesses where I work with them over time. So I'm not a one-on-one coach, But one of my programs that I run, which is called Lead with Optimism, which is teaching people the importance of leading from a positive perspective and all the positive psychology that they can apply so that they do show up in a positive and productive way. That program comes with a 21-day program that they run for themselves, where they're practicing gratitude and mindfulness, kindness, small little things that have a lot of data behind them to show that they make a difference. And so I've run that with easily over 3,000 or 4,000 people over the last few years, especially during lockdown. And the messages I get at the end of that course is what excites me. When someone messages me saying, this has totally changed the way I'm interacting with my team. I'm learning how to ask for things in a way that people are excited to work with me. I'm learning to appreciate them. And sometimes this is coming from people who've been in leadership for 20 years and they've had a mindset shift of they're going, wow, I can lead with a carrot and not with a stick. And the fact that my program helps them to do that is incredibly encouraging for me. And just to hear that people have got improved energy, that they're looking at their goals with a lot more excitement, that gets me excited.
And Verity, looking back over your own leadership journey, who are the type of leadership role models that you encountered and you would recommend future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
So I see two types of leaders when I'm working in the corporate space. I see leaders who want to believe that they are inclusive and they're going to welcome everyone's ideas, and I'll arrive at the strategy session and suddenly this person who's told me how they lead, I actually can see how they lead. And without meaning to, they might have a very strong personality. They're shutting down ideas, they're interrupting, and I just watch their team diminish and diminish and diminish. I've over time learned to pull that person aside and actually just be honest about what I'm seeing and ask them if they want to try another way. And I've been very lucky. They've always said yes. And then we start to shift it. But on the other side, I see leaders who are comfortable saying they don't know and saying that to their team. And those are the leaders that inspire me. They'll say, guys, I'm not sure how we're going to figure this out. What do you think we should do? And they'll say, look, I'm really worried about the budget that we've set. And I know there's things that might not work here. How do you think we can work around it? Those are the leaders that really excite me and really inspire me, because I see their team stepping up and they all take ownership. And I really believe that's the kind of leadership we need to see more and more of.
Now, Verity, how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
So my website is iamverity.com or verityprice.com. It takes you to the same place and you can see the various offerings I have in terms of keynotes, but also team sessions and strategy sessions that I run online and in person. And then Instagram @IamVerity, Facebook @IamVerity, LinkedIn, Veritys, any one of those platforms. I like to share my journey of what I'm learning, not only as a speaker, but also as a facilitator, and with my passion about what happens in here and little tips and tricks for people to get the most out of their thinking and out of their lives.
And last but not least, Verity, what is your message to the millions of kids out there that are now looking at their career, that are wondering how should they go about building a career in this new world? What is maybe one tip or two that you think is really important for upcoming leaders?
Beautiful. I think two tips stand out for me, Nick. The first is to know that you always have a choice in life. You can either react to what's happening to you, or you can create what happens because of you. Now, reacting will help you survive and you'll probably get on okay, but creating is where you thrive. That's where you stand out. That's where you innovate. And so looking at whatever obstacles are in front of you as you look where you want to go, am I just reacting to my circumstances, or am I being creative and creating a different approach to this? So that's my number one. You choose whether you react or create. Number two is learn how to communicate. Because it doesn't matter how incredible an idea you have inside of you, if you can't communicate it in a way that people remember, in a way that moves people to want to follow you, to say yes to you, to invite you in, nothing is going to happen. So if you do nothing else, work on your communication skills and upskill yourself as a communicator, because that is what people remember. That's what will help you stand out in an interview. That's going to help you in a sales process. When you're pitching a big idea to the company, your communication is key. So be creative and get communicating.
Well, Verity, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and for shining your light so bright and inspiring us. You're an incredible inspiration. And just one advice, that we should be honest with ourselves. We should be tapping into our own unique voice. It's incredibly powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.